For mushroom cookery, there's a couple schools of cooking mushrooms, but I think with most mushrooms, most of them you want to stay away from, especially the wild ones, stay away from them raw. Maybe the exception is porcini. There's a couple other exceptions, but a lot of them really don't shine until you hit them with high heat, which again, as I was talking earlier, kind of breaks down, denatures the proteins, and kind of releases the flavor, and kind of when they hit the pan, exude their liquid, and that evaporates off. You're left with that really brings out the flavor profile of the mushroom, and it's the same. Really, it's the same way with like any of the proteins, whether it's animal proteins and a lot of the vegetable proteins, such as like if you're taking tofu and also or one of the soy-based proteins, and it hits high heat. And that kind of breaks down the proteins and caramelizes them. You get a lot more flavor and a lot more interesting flavor profiles. I guess some of the, I know people that don't like mushrooms because they say, well, they're slimy or tasteless. Maybe they just haven't had the mushroom prepared correctly. A lot of folks, when they cook mushrooms, don't use high enough heat, and they, exude the liquid, but they don't cook that liquid off. And depending on the type of mushroom, they might consider it either flavorless or slimy and kind of watery, but that's not the case. I could go into just a little bit on some of the mushroom lore. A little bit that I've read about mushrooms, it seems like the first cultivars of mushrooms were, I guess, China and Japan were cultivating shiitake, supposedly centuries. David, you know the history of cultivation?
Thousands of years, actually, but just by accident, basically. They see some mushroom growing, and they pulverize mushroom, put them in some dead tree, and next year you get more mushrooms. So I think that's really how it got started.
Yeah, I was reading that Egyptian pharaohs revered the mushrooms, and they're only allowed, only if you're nobility was you could eat mushrooms. I guess it was also with some of the Roman emperors, while other Roman emperors like decree that the mushrooms you can't eat, they send them back to the dung heap where they belong, while others, really again revered the mushroom and it was just food for nobility. So it's kind of through its course of human history, it's kind of had its up and downs, and depending on where you are on the globe, whether they're revered or reviled,
Yeah, we term it mycophilic or mycophobic. So you either like them or you love them or you hate them. So here, Eric was talking about chanterelles. I have two more chanterelles here, relatives of these chanterelles. This is a yellowfoot chanterelle, and this is a black chanterelle. We'll pass those around. Those are two good gourmet mushrooms that typically come out a little later, like in January around the Bay Area or more northern California. And he also mentioned the bluet, and there's a bluet right there in the far box, right at the base. This one right here.
What is the season for chanterelles around here?
Well, it should be right now and going until maybe March or so. You basically, as soon as it starts raining, regular rains for about 6 weeks, they are slow developing mushrooms. So it takes about 6 weeks for them to grow into a full mushroom. So after the first 6 weeks after the first regular rains, you should go out and pick every chanterelle you see in an area, and then that will deadhead them, and they will sprout up more, and you come back and you pick those. So then the body of the mushroom in the ground says, ooh, some animal being is out there taking my fruiting bodies, so I'm going to make some more, and they'll spread the spores around. So it's like deadheading on a plant. If you cut them off, and it'll make more. It's not like you're going to lose anything by harvesting mushrooms in the wild. Now, if you go and rip up the duck and scratch it all up and tear it all up, yes, that's a different matter, but just picking the mushroom itself is actually a stimulant to the mushroom. So the bluet that we're passing around is a purple mushroom typically, and it's another saprobic mushroom. The chanterelles are symbiotic with the roots of the tree, so you must have the oak tree there to grow them. But the bluet grows in the oak leaves themselves. And I know that, I'm not sure about David, but I do know that Toby's sons have been experimenting with trying to grow the bluets in the farm saprobically.
Actually, we've been playing with bluet for a while, and We just got our first crop just recently. But the yield is very low. We only get 1 ounce out of the bottle. But we are successfully doing that. So hopefully in the next few months we can.
Just out of curiosity, are you using the same strain of blue?
What's happening? We use our spent substrate,
Okay.
compost it, and then we use it to grow the bluet.
And are you using? I know, like I've gotten bluets. You know, there's cultivated bluets from Europe that some of the wholesalers bring in, but it seems to be. Definitely seems to be a different mushroom than.
It's actually a different
right?
species. They call them blue feet, I think.
Yeah.
And they're not quite the same, but it's closer related.
Either or.
Yeah, we're using the European version.
Got it.
So with tissue culture and French import, basically.
He also mentioned in passing the wine cap stropharia, which is also called the garden giant. It's Stropharia rugoso annulata. That one is closely related to a mushroom we brought in, which is that, or the one right at the bottom, the yellow one. No, next, yes, that one. This one here is a relative of the one he was talking about. This is Stropharia ambigua, so it's the ambiguous Stropharia. When you see this one, it's blooming right now, and it typically is attached and so forth. When you pull this one up, it says in David Aurora's book, this one tastes like leaf mold. Well, it does taste like leaf mold, but it basically tastes like whatever it's growing on. So when you grow it on straw, like they could grow this on straw, it tastes like straw. You say, oh, well, that sounds delectable. I would just love that. Well, maybe if you grew it on coffee grounds, it would taste like coffee, and maybe if you grew it on cocoa hulls, it might taste like cocoa. So these are worth experimenting with if you would like to try it. This particular mushroom and the bluet, you can pull it up out of the ground. It has the rooted mycelium hanging there. Cut that portion off and put that in your cultivation bag to take home and start it on some straw, and take the top part and put it in the, if you want to try leaf mold flavored mushrooms, you take that and put that in the pan and cook it. It's not poisonous, it just tastes like leaf mold. So.
Eric, do you have a trivia question ready?
Really?
If not, I'm sure the other speakers can, or we can come back to you.
Okay, yeah, very simple one. The Alice in Wonderland, the mushroom that the toadstool mushroom that supposedly caused everyone to hallucinate. Anyone know what that mushroom is? Yeah.
Amanita muscaria.
There you go.
Can you repeat that for the Amanita muscaria?
That is the red one that you saw past Woodlands. So we go in after the speakers talk in the evening, and we go there and take over the kitchen and just start cooking up stuff. So we make handicap mead using prickly pears, local candy caps, and honey, local honey, and we brew it up and make handicap mead, which is kind of it's a fusion thing. And but we also take, among other things that we do, is we take the local mushrooms that nobody thinks taste good, and then we try preparing things like the scaly chanterelle, which is that big one right there, the big trumpet one. This one here, and there's another one right next to it there. This one is a giant one. So we'll take this and cook it up. Everybody says, oh, well, that's not, it causes gastrointestinal distress. Well, as Eric is talking about, if you don't cook them properly, you may not be able to digest them properly. So this is another mushroom that has a lot of biomass in the woods, and we're figuring out how to prepare it so it tastes good.
Okay, talking about a foraging mushroom, there's two kinds of mushroom foragers.
Yeah.
There's a bold one, they're very ambitious and they collect anything, and there's a old one, but you don't find an old and bold collection.
I'm not as old as I could be, but I'm not dead yet, so.
Very, very few.
Yeah. There's a few sayings in the mushroom world. One is that every mushroom is edible once. And there are, as David says, that other thing. Toby hasn't had a chance to speak yet. Would you like?
Actually, I wanted to
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
have an opportunity to transition from the foraging to the cultivation, and we can pass these two as a
Excellent.
counterpoint
Sure.
to each other.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk us through this?
Sure. This. Well, why don't Toby talk about that one, and then I'll talk about this one.
Interesting that I'm going to talk about this one to start off with.
So they can see you.
This is how we grow all of the mushrooms on our farm. The medium is basically the same for all the different mushrooms. It's what we inoculate it with that determines what mushroom's going to grow. So this is basically a 5-pound substrate of red oak sawdust, rice bran, and a little calcium, which is a crushed oyster shell. And that we make about 3,600 of these blocks a day. So it starts out with just the sawdust, and if you go to my farm, you'll see piles of sawdust. And those piles come in, and they have to not really compost, but they do need to break down somewhat. So the piles get watered, turned, and we just keep moving them along for so many weeks until it's ready for production. So this gets put into a mixer. The mixer has a little water, it has the rice bran, and it has the calcium. And then we fill these bags. And the importance of the bag is that it has a filter on it. And so that during the incubation period, and depending on which mushroom it is we're growing, it has a different length of incubation. So when it gets, from the time it goes into the bag goes into big retorts or big pressure cookers, big pressure vessels. They're cooked for 4 hours. And then they go into our clean room or lab where they get inoculated with the type of spawn for the mushroom we want to grow. After that time, they're incubated, which means they just wait while that mycelium runs through, and all the white that you see is the mycelium that's going to fruit into a mushroom. So this is lion's mane, or bear's head, monkey's head. It's a hericium mushroom. At the point that it's incubated for 6 weeks, we bring it into a room, slit the bag so that it gets oxygen. The mushrooms want to grow towards the oxygen. And there it is, the mushroom. One of the things about the hericium is it's not a huge yield, as you can see. Usually we'll get somewhere between 3 and 4 of those puffs on a block.
Part of the situation with this particular mushroom is you try to figure out every mushroom until you can cultivate it financially viably. And so they've done a good job of figuring that out. But if you see one in the wild, this is the thing in the wild. This is a very big one from the wild. You're going to get to handle this as it goes around. Don't punch that one because it's very delicate. But it's a very nice, shaggy looking mushroom. And this one is a very good seafood mushroom because I've been trying to get the Garrones to change the name of their mushrooms here, and they call them the crabaloni mushroom because it comes out at the abalone and crab season. The texture on the outside is just like crab. On the inside, it's dense back here where it's attached to the substrate or to the log or the tree trunk or whatever. It's very much more dense like abalone. So you can cut it open and you can see a transition between the abalone meat and the crab meat on the outside. If you take this mushroom and slice it and put it in the pan during the season when you might be getting abalone and crab, since they both all come out at the same time, then you would have a very good seafood mushroom. This will extend your crab or lobster or any kind of seafood at the same time. It's got exactly the same texture. When you just add a little bit of fish or any kind of thing, I don't know if Eric grows this or cooks this or not, but